Okay, so we've been talking about this post-war era of the early Cold War and our new relationship with the world as this major global superpower, with the Soviet Union as the only other major global superpower. And we've been talking a lot about foreign policy and our response to communism and containment, all these things. But now I'm going to get more into how communism and this sort of second Red Scare is playing out at home, how it's affecting our culture, and then we'll talk about Truman's domestic agenda and sort of what did exist there for a while, the brief time that he was president. So if you remember, our first Red Scare was after World War I, right when the Bolshevik Revolution took place and communists first started to come into the United States as immigrants. And we started to restrict immigration. We saw the rise of the Second Klan, Palmer raids, and a lot of things like that. And we're going to see, very similar situations play out. Instead of, invading immigrants' homes, we're not really so much worried about immigrants anymore as we're worried about regular Americans being secret, like communist agents. So to investigate all of these potential paranoias, the U.S. Congress is going to form a committee called the House Un-American Activities Committee, and it was literally their job to investigate suspected communists. Now, it's not a crime to be a communist. I want to make that clear, because we're a quote-unquote free country, right? And we should, and regardless of your political affiliation, that's not illegal. But the best thing to relate this to, and that's the whole reason the Crucible was written, is the witch trials, right? It might not, it would have been illegal to be a witch, but they couldn't really prove it one way or the other, right? But even just being accused, that was enough to make you seem guilty in the eyes of your community, and that is what would really ruin your life, and that's where the real punishment would come in. So the man who was like the face of this witch hunt, I guess like the, tiny Abigail Williams or Ann Putnam Jr. of the situation, is Senator Joseph McCarthy, and that's him up there in that top photograph. He was, like I said, a senator, and he really made a name for himself one day when he was giving a speech to a Republican women's group in Wheeling, West Virginia, and he held up this piece of paper during his speech, and he was like, on this piece of paper, I have 250 names of people who are confirmed communists within the State Department, blah, 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 blah. And people really started freaking out, like 250 people. Because think about it, most Americans don't hear, oh, there are 250 communists who, 250 people that believe in communism or socialism that work for our government. What they hear is there are 250 Russian spies, and that's a terrifying thing. So that launches and kicks off this massive wave of a manhunt to investigate anyone who might be secretly working for the KGB or something. So and it's it's going to hit every area of American culture. We're going to see it, American civilians, we're going to see celebrities, and we're going to see government employees, all subject to scrutiny here. One of the first big groups, like I said, was Hollywood. A lot of people were paranoid about, Hollywood always being liberal in general, but, them implementing secret communist, subliminal messaging, I guess, in movies. And so Hollywood and screenwriters specifically, the people who wrote movies and scripts, they came under a lot of scrutiny. And there were specifically 10 of them who were subpoenaed to come testify and answer questions to the House Un-American Activities Committee. And they were absolutely grilled, and a few of them refused to answer some of these questions because really they felt like it's none of the government's business. It's not the government's business if I believe in communism or if I don't, because that's not a crime. And they're right about that, right? It's really not the government's business if you happen to believe in one political affiliation or the other. But You can't disobey a subpoena. If they tell you have to come answer questions, you have to come answer questions. You can't come and just say, like, no, I'm refusing to answer questions. So some of them went to jail, and when they got out, they were basically blacklisted. It didn't matter that they weren't, convicted of being a communist and sent to jail for being a KGB agent or a Russian spy, but they lost their livelihood because of it. Actually, one of them ended up having to start writing screenplays under a fake name. His name was Alan Trumbo. Well, that was his real name. And he actually wrote several screenplays under a fake name, one of which he won an Oscar for, that he couldn't even accept because it would have blown his cover. So we can see this is having just being accused has a direct impact on people's livelihood. This guy down here at the bottom who looks like he's so bored, like, oh my God, can people stop asking me about my political beliefs? That is a guy named Alger Hiss, Algerhiss, Alger Hiss. Alger Hiss worked for the State Department, and he was accused by an actual communist and Russian spy named Whittaker Chambers, who got caught buying, American secrets, and in exchange for a smaller sentence, he was like, well, I'll tell you who I bought it from. I bought these documents off of Alger Hiss. And Alger Hiss is just like a regular dude, a strong American, one who wants to serve his country, works for the government, a good guy. So they bring him in front of the committee and they grill him, and he's got answers for everything. He looks like, that Whittaker Chambers has pretty much just made this up to get himself a lesser sentence. And when they're pretty much about to call it quits on the whole investigation into Alger Hiss, Whittaker Chambers is like, no, I have proof. And they're like, okay, well, you should have said that a while ago. Sure, what proof do you have? And he's like, I hid the original documents. I can get them for you. They've got his name on them, his letterhead, like they clearly came from him that I bought. Let me go get them. So where does he take them to get these documents? A pumpkin patch. He hid these top secret government documents that he bought from Alger Hiss in a literal pumpkin. I'm not making that up. That really happened. And it ended up being true. Alger Hiss really was selling these secrets, so he went to jail. And that just increases all this fear and paranoia. Here's this guy that looks like, just like a regular person. He doesn't look like some secret spy. He's not walking around in a trench coat and sunglasses, but he was. So that really leads to a lot of fear and paranoia, and it continues this cycle of distrust. This couple that you see on the far right, the Rosenbergs, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, they worked for in the private sector. They worked for an engineering company that was working on nuclear weapons manufacturing, and they were the first and only civilian couple, to be convicted and executed for espionage. They were convicted of selling our nuclear secrets to Russia, and we actually to this day don't really know if that was a false conviction or not, and a wrongful execution. There's plenty of evidence to say that they might not have done that, and some evidence to say that they might have. So their conviction remains a controversial one. But McCarthy is finally going to see the end when he starts accusing members of the military. In like the spring of 1954, the Army McCarthy hearings began, and he started accusing soldiers, members of our army, of being secret communist spies and Russian spies. And that's where people were like, well, now you lost me, Joe. These are true American heroes, and you're basically accusing them of being traitors, and people did not get behind that. So actually after that, Congress voted to censure Senator McCarthy, and that was pretty much the end of his career. But that definitely wasn't the end of this paranoia. Joe McCarthy just happened to be the face of it for so long. And in an effort to push back, America wants to be as much of the opposite of this as we possibly can be. We want to position ourselves to be as opposite of Russia as possible. And there's a strong stereotype of communists being atheists. So if we have to be the opposite of communists, then we have to hold strong to Christian values. So we're going to see a new rise in Christian conservatism in the 1950s and conservative values. The 1950s is when we will add "In God We Trust" to our currency, and it's when we're going to add the words "under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance. Those things were not there before the 1950s, and they wouldn't have been there had it not been for the Red Scare. So, aside from our fear and paranoia, we're actually doing pretty well. On the whole, America's doing all right after World War II. We actually sort of like made a profit. So we're going to see a lot of economic changes. Some good, some bad, some just neutral but different. Congress will sign the Taft-Hartley Act, which would slow down the growth of unions. It limited some of those closed shop contracts. And so this is definitely going to be a time where we're seeing us getting back to like supporting businesses over supporting the employee. But we still have a lot of those older New Deal things in place. So we still have, the last time that we were supporting big businesses was like the Gilded Age. And we didn't have like a lot of rules and protections to help employees when we were supporting big businesses. So they got the like shaft every time. But now that we have a lot of those things like a minimum wage and Social Security, then it's easier to put more of a limit on groups like labor unions. So we will see the economy begin to grow. Right after the war, we hit a small recession as we're moving from wartime to peacetime, but that is natural and it happens anytime you see a change like that. But immediately then after that, things get rolling. So how is Truman going to keep it rolling? He'll do several things. One thing he's going to do is he's going to sign into law the GI Bill. G.I. Joe, the soldier, the GI Bill. And so this was basically a $2 million, or no, way more than $2 million. I'm thinking of the wrong statistic, but it was a lot of money. But it was essentially like loans for veterans. So, and it could be loans for anything. You could get a loan to buy a house, low interest, almost no interest loans, loan to buy a house, loan to go to college, loan to start a business. And think about how many veterans we have at this point in time. I mean, like half the freaking country's probably a veteran because of the World War I and II. And they all qualify. Plus Korea, by the day, we've got more and more veterans. So, millions of people are going to start enrolling in college. If you see this graph behind the title piece of the slide there, that is college enrollment in research, public and community colleges and universities. And you can see right around like 1949 is when things start to boost a lot. And by 1959, they kick up almost like straight up. And we're going to see tons and tons of people enrolling in college. So higher education is going to get a big boost here. And this is all part of Harry Truman's domestic agenda, which is called the Fair Deal, not to be confused with the Square Deal or the New Deal. This is the last deal that we'll have, I guess, until we get to maybe present day, if they ever pass a new Deal or a Green New Deal or something. But the Fair Deal was all about, it was essentially trying to like resurrect those ideas of the New Deal and of the Square Deal, of like offering every American a fair shot. The Fair Deal expanded public housing, Social Security, raised the minimum wage, but unfortunately for Harry Truman, a lot of those things that he was trying to push for are going to fail due to lack of congressional support. He couldn't get support from Republicans, and he really eventually started to lose support of his own party. A lot of Democrats weren't even, it's really Southern Democrats, he could not get behind a lot of these things, and Republicans, he couldn't get behind a lot of these things. So very, very different from the deals of the Roosevelts. Harry Truman is not really able to make the Fair Deal work too much to his advantage. But aside from all that, like I said, economically, we're going to be doing really well. We're going to see a lot of changes. One big change is in terms of our job sector. We're going to see Americans moving from a manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy. And you can sort of see that reflected in college enrollment. Like all these people aren't going to college to get a manufacturing job. And by service, I don't mean, like I'm a waiter or waitress, like a servant or something like that. Really any job that's not manufacturing something and is not in the information sector is pretty much a service job. Doctor, lawyer, all of those are all those jobs are service jobs. And for so long, really since the beginning of America, since the Industrial Revolution, America has been a country that makes things. And we're going to start to see that fall away here as we're getting into the middle of the 20th century. And that's going to have long-lasting impacts on how our economy is going to move on forward. But we are going to, double the number of people in the middle class during this period of time. So we're definitely seeing a lot more financial stability. Most families will own a car. Most families will own a TV. Way more opportunities for employment for women. Definitely different jobs because the war is over. So there's definitely going to be a lot of societal pressure to push women out of those more masculine jobs, and women are definitely going to be getting paid less and treated way differently than men in the workplace. But there are way more opportunities for women post-war than there were pre-war. And for one of the first times, we're actually going to see that economic growth really happening in the South. Kind of shocking, but there were a lot of new jobs in the South, not just the Southeast, but all over the South. If you see that sort of red blob draped across the southern United States on that map there, that is called the Sun Belt. And we're going to start to see millions of people migrating to the Sun Belt over the next couple of decades for several reasons. One, more jobs. Two, a better climate. Living in the Sun Belt might say, like, what? A better climate? Are you insane? It's hot as crap. Well, guess what we get in the 1950s? Air conditioning. So it's a lot more doable, especially for people who've never had it before. On top of that, there is a much lower cost of living rate all across the South, much lower tax rates, and it's going to have a lot of effects. Because on top of, think about it, all these people from like the North are going to be moving to the South, and on top of that, we're also going to see a lot of immigration from South and Central America also moving into that southern region. They're moving north, but they're still all moving to the same location. So the population in terms of numbers of all the way from Southern California to the southern parts of North Carolina are really going to start to grow. Like I said, it's going to have a lot of effects. Billions more in tax revenue for these southern states who for so long have really been on the lower end of the economic totem pole. With a higher population, you got more people paying taxes, and they're going to rake in so much money. On top of that, the larger populations brings you another major bonus and effect, which is more voting power. Your state increases in population, you're going to earn more seats in Congress, you're going to earn electoral votes. Every single president after Kennedy has been from a Sun Belt state, which is, I guess until maybe like the new millennium, but it's kind of mind-blowing that even Reagan, right? He was from California. So it's crazy for so long that that Sun Belt is going to have a lot of political power that they haven't had in a long time. And it's even going to have pop culture effects. Think about it. If you've ever wondered why the Brooklyn Dodgers leave Brooklyn and move to Los Angeles, this is why. Because the people of Brooklyn started moving to the South and started moving to other places, not necessarily Los Angeles, but some of that is true. And this is going to come with even more cultural effects. But this new migration into these different parts of the country and this economic stability is really going to start to shape how the rest of the 20th century is going to play out. So we definitely consider this to be an age of conformity. Like I said, we want to be as different as the Soviet Union as possible. So we want to position ourselves to be like traditional and, conservative and Christian and moral and all of these things. And on top of that, we're living in this, we're trying to pretend like we live in this utopia where our country is wealthier than ever. It's more powerful than ever. And our economy is doing better than it's done in a very long time. This makes people feel really comfortable bringing families and children into the world. So we're going to see the baby boom. A lot of people are always like, oh, the baby boom, soldiers came home from war, got busy with their wives, and all these kids were born. No, that's not what happened. Not even freaking close to what happened. If that's what happened, then the baby boom would have lasted for 1 year, right? It would have been the 1 year that all the soldiers came home from war. But that's not how long it lasts, okay? It lasts from 1944 to 1961. All the babies born in that time period, 65 million babies, okay? They're all going to be considered boomers. Here they are, the boomers. And these growing families they're going to have even more cultural impacts, where we've got a really large young generation, young families starting to grow. And where are they all going to live? The suburbs. This is something we would call white flight, right? They're not moving into inner city neighborhoods where they might want to be attracted to manufacturing jobs. We're moving from manufacturing to service, right? So you don't need to work in the city because service jobs can be done everywhere. Additionally, racism's all over the country, right? That's not going anywhere. So plenty of people don't want to live in inner cities, which are largely populated by minorities. So these like newer middle class white families are going to be moving to the suburbs. The first major like mass produced suburban development is called Levittown, 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 and it was on Long Island, designed by this guy named William Levitt. And that picture over there on the far right, it might look like, I don't know, little white boxes. That's basically what they are. But those are houses, and they would mass produce these houses, and they could build these. Basically every house looked the same. There might have been like 3 different types of house. You just like pick which kind of house you want, and they'll build it for you in like 10 seconds. And people moving to the suburbs, that's going to have even more of an effect. We have cars available. Cars are going to be a big piece of culture in the 1950s and stuff. So now you can live outside the city. And so if you need to shop or you want things to do, we need suburban activities. Before, when people moved to the suburbs, they still drove into the city for like activity. But now we've got so many people living outside the city that the suburban communities are really going to grow. Shopping malls, drive-ins, drive-throughs, franchises, fast food, all of this is going to be grown and born, and it's all going to come out here. We're going to see it happen because of this like age of conformity. But I want to be clear, not everyone is down with the conformity. There are plenty of people who are like, no, I don't want to conform. I don't want to be part of whatever society's telling me to think, because they're not always right. And we would call that group of people beatniks, Beatnik, beatniks, the beat generation. So people like Betty Friedan, who published The Feminine Mystique, all about women being forced into the traditional gender roles and the negative consequences that can have on their like psychological development. Or let me think. Oh, an author named David Reisman, Riesman. He wrote a book called The Lonely Crowd, which was about how, individualism is what makes you feel whole. And if you are constantly giving up pieces of yourself to become a part of this community and try to blend in, it can have negative psychological effects on you that can lead to depression and other things because you don't feel like your actual self. And those are all very true things.